Hey guys, remember to like the video and hit subscribe.
Can you ask Destiny if he was president, how would he solve the Israel-Palestine and Russia-Ukraine war?
Israel-Palestine is easy. You make a big box of nukes and you take them to Jerusalem and you tell the Israelis and the Palestinians that they have to engage in 2 months of negotiations. And if they can't reach a peace agreement by the end of the 2 months of negotiations, you like open envelopes and you see who was willing to give up more. And whichever side was willing to give up more gets the box of all the nukes and they get to blow the other side up. For Russia, Ukraine, we should just literally go no-fly zone over Russia. Tell them we're going to blow up all their troops and blow up all their people until they leave. And then when the whole world cries about nuclear war, we can say, well, if Putin wants it, then good luck. And then wait for
Wait,
him to fuck
really? Are
off.
you trolling right now with Russia?
No, I'm serious. I think it's ridiculous that Russia can do whatever they want, and we all have to say like, "Oh, what about nuclear war? Oh, what about nuclear war? What?" Like, is Russia really going to start deploying nukes for an offensive operation? I don't believe it, and I think it's bullshit that the rest of the world is the one that always has to make a difficult decision. Make Putin make a difficult decision for once in his life.
I mean, I totally disagree with that.
Or no-fly zone over Ukraine, not Russia. Sorry.
Okay, that makes it a bit better, better than no-fly zone across Russia. But the way, I mean, they do these game scenarios where they kind of play out how this is going to work. And it always starts off with like an incident, like even sometimes one that people didn't expect. Like one plane gets shot, and within like 3 days, in every scenario, it escalates to all out nuclear Armageddon. Like,
Nah, I
really?
don't think that would happen because nobody wants it. Putin doesn't want to nuke anybody. The U.S. doesn't want to nuke anybody. I don't think.
Yeah, but then a plane gets shut down, then someone launches a missile that's a little bit more of an escalatory strike on a ship.
I think
Just
when you
goes
have
back.
big powers like that fighting, people don't do escalatory strikes. You do retaliatory strikes that are proportional in nature. It happened in Iran when we killed Soleimani. They bombed an embassy. We bombed a whatever. It happened with Israel.
Soleimani was not proportional to us in any way in terms of the military.
Iran did a proportional return strike. Yeah, they
No,
tried
no,
to.
I'm saying, but they were not an equal power to us. They don't have any nuclear weapons.
Well, sure they don't, but I'm saying that in general, people will follow the rules of proportionality. It's not like if like I would agree that if we were attacking into Russia, they might do some crazy shit. But Russia doesn't want a nuclear war over an offensive war. Like they would lose the support of literally everybody. China wouldn't back them. Nobody would back them. They'd just be seen as insane. I don't even know if Putin would be able to do it, or if he would get assassinated by an oligarch.
I think he has a really tight grip on power in Russia.
Yeah, but that's under the assumption he's not going to blow the whole world up, right?
Well, I mean, like sometimes, like yeah, like you hit that button, you hit the nuclear button, like the consequences for you come later. But actually, the whole world is going to eventually blow up. My
Right now,
solution
the
was,
road that we're on is a road to nuclear disaster. The idea that if you tell people that as long as you have nuclear weapons, saber rattling will allow you to capture an unending amount of territory and everybody will appease you over and over again. Appeasement doesn't work. We've seen it historically. Right now, the path we're on is a path towards nuclear warfare. If Russia is taught and other countries around the world are taught that if you invade other countries, there's going to be severe repercussions, then it means that other countries will see that as a deterrent and they won't invade other countries. But right now, what we're teaching Russia is you can invade countries and take them over because using the logic you're using, Russia should invade Poland next because why would we fight back? It would be nuclear warfare, right?
so yeah, so Russia has already faced extreme consequences. There's been massive amounts of tariffs. You've seen, for example, their military force being spent. This whole thing has been an embarrassment for Russia. Yeah, like this.
Yeah, but if they
Russia,
win, Putin gets to walk away. Dictators don't lose wars. If a dictator loses, then they're deposed. They get kicked the fuck out. They have to be able to walk away saying it was a win. And if
it's
Putin
not
gets
black and white as losing and winning. There's different.
it depends on how they sell it to their audience, though, right? They sell it to their fandom. Putin will be able to sell this war as a major W if they literally get to steal territory from another sovereign European country. That's insane. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. That should be an absolute no-go.
Not to the families of Russian soldiers. Right?
Nobody gives
like
a fuck about the families. Putin doesn't care about them. He cares about the families of the oligarchs that keep him in power and the people with the powers of like political leverage in Russia.
Yeah, I disagree with the solution. I think a better solution would be to do this. Actually, kind of similar to what you proposed with Israel and Palestine, but without nukes. Basically, you go to Putin and you say, "Hey, listen, we're going to need you to agree to a peace deal that's going to involve security guarantees for Ukraine. And if you don't, we're going to give much more military support to Ukraine. You do the same thing with Ukraine, but with withdrawing military support, and you basically force both countries to come to the table and negotiate something that's going to give security guarantees to Ukraine." I think in terms of the captured territory, I think the best way to go is just to allow the people in those territories to vote, but not like the way Russia did it, where it was obviously corrupt, but something that's monitored by the UN, and the people of those territories decide whether they want to be part of Ukraine or Russia.
Sure, but why wouldn't he just invade Poland next then, or try to peel off territory from other European countries?
Well, because where can he go? He can go to Moldova. That's the only non-NATO country.
Why wouldn't you just go to a NATO country?
Well, because that would be like instant suicide.
Why?
Because he is attacking a NATO country, and they're all Article 5 means they're all going to defend each other.
Why would we defend them though? Couldn't that lead to nuclear war?
Well, I don't think Putin wants direct war with the West.
Maybe not, but like we're not going to fight because all the same arguments about nuclear war are going to be there, right? If Putin doesn't want confrontation with the West, then why wouldn't the West say if you attack Ukraine, you're going to have to deal with us?
Because I think he knows that if he attacks a NATO country, that the West will be forced to respond whether they want to or not.
Shouldn't that feeling be there no matter who you attack?
No, because some countries are a lot harder to bully than other countries. Like, for example, America had no qualms about attacking Iraq, that nothing was going to happen, but they would have massive qualms about attacking China or something like that. Some countries are just a lot tougher than other countries.
Yeah, why can't an American-backed ally be a tough country like Ukraine? Like, why couldn't we tell Ukraine? Like, what do you think would realistically happen if we had told Russia, hey, you need to leave, or we're going to start like doing no-fly zones over Ukraine, and we're going to bomb your troops in Ukraine? Do you think Russia would have started launching nukes in an offensive war?
I don't think it would happen that fast. I think that the problem is that Putin is so invested, and I would argue that his life is even invested in the outcome of this war. Like, if Russia just gets totally 100% humiliated and has to pull back everything and give up all the territory, right, then Putin is probably going to lose power and probably going to lose his life. So for him, it's an existential threat. And so at that point, he's like, well, I'm going to die if I do this. I'm better off playing chicken with the West. And so he's going to be more defiant.
Sure, but isn't this where a good negotiator, somebody who could actually negotiate peace, come in? Like, there's a world where Russia, I don't know what this will look like on paper, but there's a world where, like, Russia gets a 99-year lease on Sevastopol. Maybe Crimea is even guaranteed to be autonomous. The rest of the territory in Ukraine goes back to Ukraine. Russia's sanctions are lifted, and they're not, like, billed for the damage that's in Ukraine. There'd be some joint European fund created. Putin gets to walk back to Russia with his head held high, saying, well, we guaranteed access to the Black Sea for the next 100 years. Russian navies will always be able to sail, even in the winter, because of our lease in Sevastopol now, and blah, blah, blah. And Zelensky and Ukraine will get to maintain their territorial integrity. Like, Russia will know, even if he sold it to a win, even if Putin sold it to a win, he'll know that if he invades some people again, he's going to get his pushed in. As opposed to right now, the world is taught everybody that as long as you're big enough, you can take over whoever you want, and if you have nukes, you can always get away with it. So I don't know if that means Pakistan or India or China or anybody else, like, let's invade some people. Well, no one's going to do anything because everybody's a big because somebody's got a nuke that they'll saber rattle about.
Well, I mean, first of all, America has reinforced that idea by herself with all the saber rattling when it comes to Greenland.
Well, we haven't saber rattled. We haven't saber rattled nukes.
Not nukes, but we have, okay, maybe saber rattle is the wrong word, but with all the threats about Greenland.
That's bad. We shouldn't have done that either. That's really retarded.
Yeah. But then we go on before that, we have the war in Iraq, like no consequences to us. Ultimately, we didn't take any territory. Yeah.
We can say Iraq was a mistake, but the idea that we made a mistake, this like Iraq trauma, the Americans have to get the over it. It can't just be because we made one mistake in Iraq. We're going to compare ourselves to Putin, right? After the Chechen civil wars, after the Syrian civil war, like that's just unhinged. Iraq was a mistake, but
but I think America for a very long time has reinforced the idea that might makes right.
Sure, but then why right now we're not saying might makes right, because Russia is not the mighty one here. The United States is. We have the opportunity to set the moral landscape of Europe, and we're abdicating that to Putin. Would you rather have America saying our might makes right, or would we rather have Russia saying our might makes right? Because right now we're allowing Russia to do it. Like, we are the might. I don't know why we're not acting like it.
I mean, Russia is also might in its own right, right? Like, they have a shitload of nukes, enough nukes to blow up the whole world.
Yeah, but they're not going to use nukes in an offensive war. If we were invading Moscow or pushing into Russian territory, then that would be a real concern. But in an offensive war, the whole world, it would be Bix afterwards. Everybody, Brazil, India, Russia, like everybody, or China, South Africa, everybody would drop Russia in a heartbeat. Nobody's going to support Russia using nuclear weapons in an offensive war against Ukraine.
It would never get that far, because if Russia uses nuclear weapons, we're ultimately going to use nuclear weapons back. And then before you know it, you have nuclear Armageddon. That's the problem.
Okay, wait. If that's the logic, then Russia should just invade Poland and take it over. I don't know why. If that's your logic, that it's all going to be instantaneously over, then why would they just invade a NATO country? Because it seems like you're saying that we always have to run away because of the nuclear saber rattling is an I win instantly button.
Let's not straw man me. I'm not saying we should run away. I think that there's a calculus that Putin does in his head.
When your home needs help,
and the calculus is that I don't think he wants to die, right? That's his thing. He doesn't want to die. That's just probably number one thing is himself. And that if he attacks a NATO country, that even though America does not want to go to direct war with Russia, America will have to. That
We
America
won't
will
have to though. The same people who are making the same arguments that, well, what about nuclear war? Do we want to nuke the world over Poland, over Estonia?
Just let me finish. He, in his mind, and I think this is true, that he will say that America, due to Article 5, will have no choice, even if they don't want to attack, even if they're worried about nuclear Armageddon, they'll have no choice but to respond with a pretty aggressive strike. Now, that's a
if
bit
we
different.
defend Ukraine,
Ukraine is more up in the air. Ukraine is not part of NATO.
Putin will not nuke anybody in Ukraine over Ukraine. I don't believe it.
I'm not saying that's how it will start, but I'm saying that I think that I don't know about the Donbass region, but if we try to push Putin out of Crimea, I think he will see it as an existential threat, and he will be like, okay, if I lose everything here, then I'm going to get assassinated by my own generals anyway, right? I'm going to be seen as weak, which is a big no-no in Russia. So at that point, I might as well risk it all, right? I think that's how his mind is going to work, especially if you try to push him out of Crimea.
Well, his mind right now is working in that I can invade any non-aligned state in the world and nobody will stop me. Is that the record we want to have? Is that?
Well, it's not as black and white as that. We have taken massive actions to stop him. We've trained America. I mean, we've trained Ukrainians. We've given them very advanced weapon systems.
Yeah, but there's a billion things more we could do, right? Like the Republicans have been like pulling the leash on us the entire time. We haven't opened up our armories to the Ukrainians. Like it was like pulling teeth to get them to send anything to them. Like,
I mean, we sent a lot to Ukraine. Yeah, I understand there was like that pause. I think the only way Ukraine can get that territory back is with NATO or American boots on the ground. I think their primary problem is manpower. They just don't have the manpower. Even us giving them even more weapons won't significantly change anything. I think it's a bloody war. I think that way too many people have died, and that I think the war has to end. It's time to end the war. But you do want to end it in a way that will prevent the war from happening again, which again goes back to security guarantees.
Okay. I mean, I totally disagree. I think that if they are allowed to conquer 20% of Ukraine's territory, I think you've undeniably, and I don't even think a reasonable mind could disagree, you've shown Russia that they're allowed to conquer people as long as it's an unaligned state. Like, if anything, we could argue that 2022 happened because of 2014, right? And there was no huge punishment for Crimea. You can argue that there were sanctions or whatever else, but Russia's shown that it's willing to endure them for victory in conflict. And what, are we going to sanction them indefinitely after the war is over? You know that Trump is eager to lift those sanctions immediately. So I just think that's the rules that we're crafting for the world, basically.
Yeah, just because Trump is not handling this issue well, it doesn't mean that's like the position for peace. I think there are different things. Yeah,
like
sure.
if you're China and looking at Taiwan, if China invades Taiwan, every argument you're making right now, like China just gets Taiwan for free then, right?
Well, America's policy under the Biden administration has been to be relatively ambiguous when it comes to this. Like, yeah, we're gonna help Taiwan. Okay, but like, will you go to war with China? Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's been relatively ambiguous to just kind of keep China on their toes and act as a deterrent. It's a lot easier to prevent things. It would have been a lot easier to prevent this war than to fix the war, right?
Yeah, but right now, America's selling to the rest of the world that if you're a nuclear power, we're not going to intervene.
Well, we have intervened in a lot of ways.
No, we haven't. Not in Ukraine.
Well, we have given them massive amounts of weapons.
Do you think shipping weapons over the Pacific is going to help Taiwan fight against China?
No. That I've seen game scenarios for that war. I think it's going to be a very hard conquest for China, due to the fact that a lot of people don't know this, but Taiwan actually has been prepping for this for a very long time. I think it'll be a very tough conquest. I don't know how it's going to go, because no one really knows how good the Chinese military is.
Wouldn't it be better if they did know, though? What if they knew that if they tried to take over Taiwan, that U.S. F-35s would be needling the out of every single troop they sent there? Like, wouldn't that be good for them to feel? And then it would kind of discourage that. Maybe they wouldn't see that as a viable option.
Yeah, I think that would be a good thing for them to feel. But I don't think it's worth chancing nuclear Armageddon with Russia to create this feeling.
Okay.
We don't disagree like massively, but we do disagree about to what extent America should go.
Well, I think that your world, in every sense of the word, it's leading to a world. Like, if you're Ukraine after this war, Ukraine is not getting any security guarantees from the United States, not from Trump. So if you're Ukraine, the next step that you have to take is getting.
Security
that's fine, but Ukraine is now going to try to procure nuclear weapons, we might guess. You should, right? So now we've just increased nuclear proliferation. More countries and non-aligned countries will have nukes, and that's the rule that America's setting for the world. Because if you get invaded, if you're not part of NATO directly, then your shit is fucked. So you should get nukes. That's what your policy is telling other countries. You should have nuclear weapons. Otherwise, you're just going to get invaded by a bigger guy with nuclear weapons who's going to be able to
Ukraine
say,
would have been, Ukraine would have been much better off if they didn't give up their nukes. Like,
yeah, but we don't want people to think that. What we should have people thinking is, if I invade a sovereign state, my shit is going to get pushed in by the United States. That's what the thought should be.
I don't think it's as simple as that.
I do. I think it's really simple. I
don't think it's as simple as that. And I think that nuclear war with Russia is the absolute worst case scenario.
Yeah, but everybody agrees with that. Everybody thinks nuclear war is bad. Russians think that. Putin thinks that. His oligarchs in general think that. Nobody wants to start launching nukes.
You're worried about it a lot less than I am. Like,
no. Your world will lead to a world where nuclear war is more likely, right? Like if we just give Hitler Poland, or if we just let him do Czechoslovakia, whatever the fuck he conquered first, like if we just give him these things, he'll stop. What did that do? I mean, it's just like,
okay, but historically what you're saying is not like supported. If we look at the Cuban Missile Crisis, what did we do during the Cuban Missile Crisis?
During the Cuban Missile Crisis, we saw boats going to Cuba, and we said, we're stopping this literally no matter the what, or else shit is fucked. And what do? They turn their ass around.
Yeah, but what do we do on the back end? Bobby Kennedy made a deal with, I believe, Khrushchev, that we're going to remove the missiles from Turkey.
Yeah, but it was one. There are nuclear weapons in Turkey now. And Turkey's even shot down Russian jets. They did it flying to Syria.
But I'm talking about, come on.
But I'm saying that, like, but all that says is that, yes, we took a really strong stance against, there are no nukes in Cuba, period. That's not going to fucking happen.
That's not what generals want him to do. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, they want him to go just to direct war with Russia. They want to do some kind of military.
Yeah, but we didn't have to. But do you think? Hold on. Do you think the United States in the 60s would have allowed the Soviet Union to set up nuclear ballistic missiles in Cuba?
Well, I think Kennedy was in a tough bind, but I think he did the one course of action.
Wait. Do you think the United States would have allowed the Soviet Union to set up nuclear missiles, ballistic missiles in Cuba?
Most likely no, as we saw.
Yeah, no, not as we saw. It would have escalated to war. We would have bombed those ships. We would not have.
It almost did escalate to war. We came very, very close.
Wait, we did come close. Yes, but you know what? Khrushchev probably thought that, right? He probably thought that I can't just sail these ships past the blockade to Cuba because they're going to sink them. My ship's going to get fucked. But if it was the world we live in today, where it's like, well, if we shoot the boats, then maybe the nuclear winter will happen. Then he would just say, fuck it, I'm just going to ship however many missiles I can to Cuba, right?
No, Kennedy took a middle route. He
wait. We blockaded Cuba, right?
Yeah, but that was like all his generals wanted him to do a military action. Like he took the middle route. We're really lucky that Kennedy was president.
But military action was on the table.
It was, but we never did it.
No, no. You keep saying, but we didn't do it. When you conceal carry, or if you have a gun, cops don't use their guns in every encounter, but they always have them, and that absolutely plays into people's minds, right? I'm not going to try to ever fight a cop on anything, even if I have a whatever, because I know he's going to shoot me. He doesn't have to shoot me for me to know he can shoot me, right? If the United States had a position of cuckoldry like we do now when it comes to nuclear shit,
we do not.
We literally watching Ukraine get invaded.
We do not have a position of cuckoldry. This is ridiculous. Just
if they would have tried to sail past the blockade to Cuba, we would have sunk those boats. No questions asked.
Most likely.
Yeah, and that probably factored into the negotiating position. Now, ultimately, did we negotiate something? For sure, because there was a strong military deterrent effect, right?
Yes, and if Russia invades Poland, then we will also respond in kind, right? So that's the analogy there. But just going back to the Cuban Missile Crisis, what we did during that period was kind of take a middle route and use diplomacy. Like a big part of the reason this whole thing was avoided. Wait, let me just finish. A big part of the reason why that whole thing was avoided is because we promised Russia to remove our missiles from Turkey.
That's fine, but it wasn't just diplomacy. It was because we had a real military threat to back it up.
And we still do have a real military
No,
threat.
we don't. We're too scared to use it because we might get nuked.
You're saying that as if it's like getting nuked. It's so
because that's how it is. But Russia's Russia's economy sucks ass. Russia's a small country. They took 12 years to do fall in fighting in Ukraine. But for some reason, the fact that Putin's like, oh, I'm going to nuke you. Look at me moving my nukes over here. I'm going to get you guys. We're like, oh, no. Well, go take over Ukraine then.
Yeah, that is, oh, no. I don't want that to happen. I don't want to wind up in just evaporate. Okay,
Okay, what?
even
Why
if the
can't
odds
it?
are
Why can't
small,
it be? Why can't it ever be put to Putin for him to make a decision where he doesn't want something to happen? Why does he have all the power here?
he doesn't have all the
He
power.
does. He's literally able to stave off the entire Western
No,
world intervening in Ukraine
he
because
doesn't
of
have all the
saber
power
rattling of nuclear warfare.
because if he nukes Ukraine, he knows that there's going to be a strong American military response. He knows that if he goes into Poland, there's going to be a strong American military response. So he doesn't have all the power here.
He literally is conducting warfare in Ukraine. He's going to steal territory from a country for the first time in decades where this has ever even happened.
Yeah, he's gonna steal the territory. And what does that have to do with America being weak?
That's not supposed to happen. In the fall of the Soviet Union, people don't just take territory from countries. This is like, these are rules of the old world. This is like pre-World War II shit, where you just take territory from people.
Yeah, the kind of the way we operate now is we just put in some kind of person in charge who's going to be favorable to us. Like
We
that's
haven't done
the
that since the Cold War. No, we don't do that anymore.
Really? Who was the president of Afghanistan?
It was the Afghanistan National Army. Who leads Afghanistan now? It was the Taliban.
The Taliban.
So no,
Yeah,
we
but
didn't put somebody in charge
person-
there.
But you don't think the guy that was in charge, the guy that flew away on a jet with like billions of dollars, you don't think that guy, we put him in power?
I think that he's the guy. I think he was loyal to the United States because the people that were voting for the people there knew that it was either the U.S. or the Taliban. But that's not the same as us installing somebody. No, of course not.
We didn't rig the election, but we definitely promoted him. And
Well, yeah, but no offense, if your choice is the USA or the Taliban, that's not a very hard choice for most people. Of course, you're gonna elect that guy.
There was yes, but there's other options. Like you could go back to the king, which was a lot more popular. Like we definitely had a heavy role into who was going to be in charge of Afghanistan.
It was always going to be a U.S.-backed government that was democratically elected or the Taliban.
Exactly. We went in, we fought the war, we overthrew the Taliban, at least for a time period, and then we put someone in power that we want to.
We didn't put him in power, though. They had elections for this person.
Right, but then their choices were limited to what America wanted them. Like the king wasn't, the king who was popular, he wasn't up for, he wasn't on the ballot.
Well, he should have ran
Like
then.
I don't think he could. Like, don't you think America had a lot of influence about who was on the ballot?
I think that whoever wanted to be on the ballot was on the ballot. Why would you install a
But
king?
you don't
That's
think
more of an
America had
installation
any
than...
influence after the Taliban got kicked out. You don't think America had any
Who do you
influence
think gave
about-
more self-determination to to their people? The Afghanistan people with the United States or Russia with Ukraine? Like it's the old
completely
Soviet
irrelevant
saying, or it's the old
topic.
World War II era of like the difference between the United States and Russia is that like if you want the US there, the US will be there. If you want the Soviets there, the Soviets will be there. If you don't want anybody there, the Soviets will be there. Like I mean, how are we comparing these two things? Do you think that the people in Afghanistan preferred the US being there or the people in Ukraine preferred Russia being there? Like it's not even remotely the same thing.
I think the people of Afghanistan, all things considered, probably preferred that no foreign country goes to war there, especially the people of Iraq. I mean, like, dude, like, you're just forgetting about like the whole Middle East. Like, we bombed Syria quite a few times. It didn't work out the way we want to, but I mean, Libya. I mean, we've gotten involved in so many countries.
Sure, we have, yeah, but these countries also have like shitty situations. Assad is a horrible person. Gaddafi was literally like imprisoning people and murdering them.
Yeah, and MBS is a horrible person too. But yeah, we're.
Do you think the people in Saudi Arabia live like the people under Gaddafi or Assad?
No, but that's just because of economics.
Sure, so it's not even remotely comparable. I think the people are much happier in Saudi Arabia than they were under a Gaddafi Libya war.
Do you think people are better off in Libya now than they were before under Gaddafi?
I'm not sure. Probably.
With their open slave markets and all that.
I mean, as opposed to Gaddafi imprisoning and torturing people and like, I don't know. Libya is a situation, but if we would have stayed, I mean, people say it would have been Iraq or Afghanistan. I'm not saying we handled the aftermath of that better, but Gaddafi's a really terrible person. Nobody liked him. Like he was literally imprisoning and murdering people. There's a reason why they.
Well, we actually kind of liked him after 9/11 because he spoke out against the hijackers. So there was a time period when we were pro Gaddafi. That kind of changed later on. Do you think the people of Iraq are better off now than they were under Saddam Hussein?
I don't know much about the current situation in Iraq, but my guess would be yes. Saddam Hussein was also
Iraq
fucking
is
insane.
essentially a proxy of Iran now.
Okay. I mean, before Iraq was in constant contention with Iran, so I mean, which one was better? The Iraq-Iran war saw like over 1 million people dead.
Yeah, but there was at least no terror in Iraq. Say what you will about Saddam Hussein, he was.
Well, there was no terrorist because he was the terrorist.
Sure, he was a dictator. Yeah, he was a brutal dictator. But what is
He
it,
literally
like
used chemical weapons against the Kurdish people there and everything. Like
Yes,
the guys.
yes.